Whether you ever buy his products or not, Jeff Bezos can make a decision one day that will affect your life the next. That makes him an oligarch. That and his incomprehensible wealth, which goes hand in hand with his power. But how did Bezos get that wealth and power, and how does he use it? I want to bring in Peter Goodmans, the New York Times global economics correspondent, and he is the author of Davos Man, How the Billionaires Devoured the World. Also with us, NewsNation contributor Lydia Moynihan, a business reporter for the New York Post. Okay, Peter, I want to start with you. When I think of Bezos and Amazon, and I think of the beginning of it, I go back to when I was in college. I remember Amazon was the place you would get your textbooks. How did it go from that, a place you buy books, to now where this guy is literally one of the most powerful people in the entire world?
Well, Bezos was always, 12 steps ahead. So he was working for a hedge fund in New York. He was working for David Shaw. And Shaw, it's 1990, tasks him with figuring out what are the things that can be sold over the internet most profitably. And counterintuitively, Bezos comes up with the idea of books. And there are a couple of reasons for books. One is he figures out that no bricks and mortar operation could ever stock anywhere close to the 3 million books in print at any given time, whereas an online operation could come close to that, or at least could get a lot of them. And then he also figures out that books, that's the industry where the leaders at that time, we're talking about Barnes and Noble, we're talking about Borders, they have the smallest market share. So it'll be the easiest industry in which he can come in and capture a dominant share of that market. So, counterintuitively, the internet's supposed to destroy reading, people are saying. At that point, it's a nascent part of commercial life. It's supposed to destroy print, but Bezos builds this empire on the strength of starting with books, but understanding early on that he was aiming to be the so-called everything store, that he could take books as a way to get us used to buying stuff online. He could build a distribution network, and eventually he could become this sort of middle merchant between the factories of the world and the households of the world. And that's basically what he does.
And it worked out. I mean, interesting that he had that plan from the very beginning when it was just books. Lydia, journalist Nellie Bowles of the New York Times described Bezos as, quote, a brilliant but mysterious and cold-blooded corporate titan. What do you think makes him so mysterious, and what makes him cold-blooded, Lydia?
Well, in that piece, she's referring specifically to the early part of his career when he was focused on hunkering down in Seattle and building his empire. He wasn't a big presence in the city at that point. He didn't give back. He was just really focused on creating a global network that would become a multi-trillion-dollar company eventually. And then it's more recently that we've seen him embrace sort of a public persona, especially when he got into streaming, into Hollywood, into buying the Washington Post. As he's become more powerful and strong, his tentacles have sort of reached into every facet of our life and every sphere. So I think that's definitely what she's referring to in terms of powerful and mysterious. But when you mentioned cold-blooded, this is something you touched on earlier. And at the same time that he's one of the wealthiest men to ever live in the entire world, he's doing that, it seems, by cutting costs when it comes to average entry-level employees. And so there have been all these reports about Amazon employees trying to unionize just to get some basic rights, to get breaks. There were terrible reports about people having to pee in a bottle because they couldn't take a bathroom break. And so all of that's happening under his watch. Obviously, the buck has stopped with him previously. He's not CEO anymore, but he was, at the time that those reports surfaced. So he seems like he's the kind of person who's willing to do whatever it takes to maintain his empire.
Yeah, and Lydia, you mentioned what it's like to work for Amazon. Peter, if you just Google Amazon suicides, there's pages and pages and pages of articles written about this, about the rate at which Amazon workers commit suicide or attempt suicide. And you always hear leadership starts at the top. Do you think this is a big problem for Bezos? Do you think he's to blame for this sort of epidemic within the company?
Well, anecdotally, there does seem to be a suicide problem. There have been reports of 911 calls in excess of what you'd expect in terms of that population. You know, there's no question that Bezos has very unapologetically set up a pressure cooker environment where he's extraordinarily demanding. I mean, if you go and read Brad Stone's seminal book on the building of Amazon, he's got a story in that book that back when a woman with small children shows up at a town hall meeting and asks about work-life balance, Bezos is just withering. I mean, in front of a room full of people says, listen, you know, we're here to get stuff done. If that's not part of your plan, you might want to go work somewhere else. This is someone who, you know, does not suffer fools and finds them everywhere. The most terrifying email that an Amazon executive can receive is just a forward of some problem from Bezos with one character at the top, a question mark. This is someone who sets a tone of he expects extreme performance. Oof. And down to the level of, you know, warehouse workers. He's someone who is a genius at execution. He, you know, like Henry Ford a century ago, is a visionary in terms of setting up the business and looking for ways to go faster and to move more product. But he clearly views the human beings who work in his enterprise as costs to be contained, you know, problems to be managed through public relations, and certainly not partners, though they use that kind of terminology the way most corporations do now. Valued associates, he calls them. I mean, he does not want to bargain with them on an equal footing. Amazon has spent tens of millions of dollars hiring the best law firms and lobbyists who are skilled at just suffocating any attempt at labor organization. And ironically, the one place where there was a successful union in Staten Island, it was led by a guy named Christian Smalls, who was fired by Amazon after he wondered aloud, you know, where are all the managers in the first wave of the pandemic? How come it's just us warehouse people working on the floor at that point with not enough safety gear, not enough hand sanitizer? And they were told, oh, you know, all the managers are offsite at some meeting. Oh, they're all on vacation. And eventually he's fired for violating quarantine, which is incredibly ironic given that he wants everyone to be quarantined, though at pay. And Amazon has lobbied aggressively to avoid any kind of federal sick leave policy so that his workers have to choose between their health or their paychecks.
Lydia, let me ask you this. There was this leaked memo that says Amazon could actually get so big that they could run out of workers and not have enough workers by 2024. Is this just a sign that they're too big? I mean, they're sort of like taking over the world. Is enough enough?
It's a great question. And this is a big policy issue in Washington, D.C. right now. There's legislation that's being, you know, discussed and could potentially be passed as soon as the summer that would rein in Amazon's control. And of course, they're doing everything in their power to lobby against it. But one of the reasons that Amazon has been so successful, especially in their e-commerce business, which is the majority of their revenue, of course, they have their web services business. They have so many different businesses at this point, but e-commerce is critical for them. And part of the reason that they are so successful is because they preference their own goods on their platform. And so that's something that legislators are looking at. Can they continue to preference, you know, and promote Amazon brands, you know, instead of their competitors? And in a way, the reason they become so successful is this sort of, you know, capitalistic theory of creative destruction. They're stepping on the toes of a lot of mom and pop shops and a lot of smaller competitors. So I think we are going to reach a point where we see legislators absolutely have to step in and take action. But again, this is such a powerful, huge juggernaut that they have lobbying and legal power to do everything to prevent that legislation from being enacted. But that's certainly something to watch, is this act that would stop Amazon from self-preferencing its
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Lydia. Let me quickly run through here some of the things that Bezos owns with his real estate portfolio. Estimated $578 million, a 30,000-acre ranch in Texas, 14,000 square foot mansion, 10-acre estate in Beverly Hills, a most expensive home in Maui, the most expensive one he owns, Hawaii. It's $78 million. He's also got a Fifth Avenue apartment. The list literally just goes on and on. I could keep reading. This massive yacht is insane.
You know if he needs a house sitter for any of those?
Yeah, right. I know. That's what I'm wondering. We'll all be. I mean, he could probably hire us all as a house sitter. We just do it for free. But Peter, I want to ask you. I think his most interesting acquisition. I've only got a few seconds. Was the Washington Post, $250 million in 2013. This guy even owns the media. He even controls some of the narrative, doesn't he?
Well, there's no evidence that he's interfering with the editorial independence of the Washington Post, a place I happily worked for 10 years. I think actually that speaks to his audacity to refashion parts of business that people think can never be remade. I mean, this is the guy who figures out how to use the internet to sell books. Well, I wrote at the time, and I think it's true. He actually thought that somebody could make money on journalism at a time when journalism looked, especially local journalism, looked threatened. And he's put a lot of money into the Washington Post, and the Washington Post is stronger now because of his leadership. Now, it does raise questions to have such an incredibly powerful person who's clearly pulling strings in Washington, who employs more than 100 lobbyists, who, and let's not pretend this is capitalist creative destruction. This is a kind of corporate welfare system that he's built for himself. I mean, you correctly pointed out in your opening segment, Amazon depends upon workers who are paid so little that they qualify for food stamps. That's us, the taxpayer, subsidizing his profits. So, we should watch carefully what he does with the Post. But for the moment, it looks like he's actually strengthened journalism.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. I think we do have to watch carefully, though, because when a guy that powerful owns a big newspaper, I think it sort of makes all of our red flags go up. Peter and Lydia, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.